The morning my wife announced she was moving in with her ex-husband for better co-parenting, I was elbow deep in our kitchen sink, trying to fish out whatever Lucy had shoved down the garbage disposal. Probably another attempt at making slime that went horribly wrong. "Dave, we need to talk," Alicia said, her voice carrying that particular tone I'd learned to dread over our 3 years of marriage. It was the same voice she used when explaining why she needed another girls' night out, or why Dylan, the personal trainer, absolutely had to come over to discuss her fitness goals while I was at work. I pulled my hand out of the murky water, wiping it on the dish towel that hadn't been washed in God knows how long. "Let me guess. You've decided we need couples therapy again? Or maybe you want to redecorate the living room with more of those crystals that are supposed to align our chakras?" Allie perched on the kitchen stool, crossing her legs in that deliberate way that used to make my heart skip. Now it just looked calculated. Her blonde hair was perfectly styled, despite it being 7 a.m, and she wore the kind of athleisure outfit that cost more than my work boots. "I'm moving in with Trevor," she said, examining her manicured nails. "Lucy needs both her parents under one roof during this crucial developmental phase. You'll understand someday." I blinked, certain I'd misheard. "You're moving in with Trevor, your ex-husband, the guy who betrayed you with his secretary and left you struggling financially." "That's ancient history, Dave. We've both grown. Trevor's been going to therapy, and he's really committed to being present for Lucy. Dr. Martinez says co-parenting works best when there's stability and consistency." "Dr. Martinez, the therapist you've been seeing for 2 months who somehow convinced you that abandoning your current husband to shack up with your ex is good parenting?" Allie's jaw tightened. "Don't be crude. This isn't about abandoning anyone. It's about putting Lucy first. Something you'd understand if you had children of your own." There it was. The knife. Twisted just right. Lucy wasn't my biological daughter, but I'd been raising her since she was 11. I'd taught her to ride a bike, helped with homework, attended every school play and soccer game. But whenever Allie wanted to hurt me, she reminded me that I wasn't her real dad. "Where exactly does Dylan fit into this co-parenting arrangement?" I asked, opening the refrigerator to grab a beer. 7 a.m. be damned. "Dylan is my personal trainer, that's all." "Right, and I'm the Pope." The sound of footsteps on the stairs announced Lucy's arrival. At 14, she had Allie's blonde hair, but thankfully inherited her father's common sense. She shuffled into the kitchen wearing an oversized t-shirt and pajama pants covered in cartoon tacos. "What's all the yelling about?" she mumbled, heading straight for the cereal cabinet. Allie's demeanor shifted instantly, her voice becoming sickeningly sweet. "Good morning, sweetheart. I was just telling Dave about our new living arrangement. You and I are going to stay with Daddy for a while." Lucy froze, Cheerios box in hand. "What? Why?" "Because we think it would be better for you to have both parents in the same house. Won't that be wonderful?" I watched Lucy's face carefully. The kid was sharp as a tack, sharper than either of her parents gave her credit for. She looked between Allie and me, clearly sensing the tension. "What does Dave think about this?" Lucy asked. "Dave wants what's best for you, too," Allie answered before I could speak. "He understands that sometimes adults have to make difficult decisions." "Actually," I said, setting down my beer harder than necessary, "Dave thinks this is the most ridiculous thing he's ever heard. But Dave also knows that arguing with your mother is like trying to nail Jell-O to a tree." "Dave," Allie hissed, "not in front of Lucy." "Oh, now you're worried about what happens in front of Lucy. That's rich." Lucy poured cereal into her bowl, the sound unnaturally loud in the tense kitchen. "When is this happening?" "Today," Allie said brightly. "I've already packed most of our things. Trevor's coming by this afternoon to help move the furniture." "Today?" I nearly choked on my beer. "You've been planning this for how long?" "A few weeks. I wanted to make sure all the details were worked out first." "A few weeks." While I'd been fixing our leaky faucets and planning our summer vacation, she'd been orchestrating her exit strategy. I had to admire the efficiency, even as it made my stomach churn. "I need to get ready for school," Lucy announced, abandoning her cereal and heading for the stairs. "Honey, you don't have to go to school today," Allie called after her. "We can spend the day setting up your new room at Daddy's house." "I'd rather go to school," Lucy replied without turning around. Smart kid. After Lucy left, Allie and I sat in uncomfortable silence. She scrolled through her phone while I stared at the coffee mug she'd given me last Christmas. "World's okayest husband," it read. Even her gifts were backhanded compliments. "So this is really happening," I said finally. "This is really happening." "And there's nothing I can say to change your mind?" Allie looked up from her phone, and for a moment I saw something that might have been regret flicker across her face. But it was gone so quickly I might have imagined it. "Dave, you're a good man. You really are. But Lucy needs her real family right now. She's at a difficult age, and she needs stability. I am her real family. You know what I mean. I did know what she meant, and it stung like hell, but I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of seeing me break down. Instead, I finished my beer and headed for the shower. I had work in an hour, and unlike some people, I couldn't just abandon my responsibilities on a whim. When I came back downstairs, Allie was loading suitcases into her BMW. The same BMW that I'd co-signed for because her credit was shot from the divorce. The same BMW that I'd been making payments on for the past year. Need help? I asked, though every fiber of my being rebelled against the idea. Trevor's handling the heavy stuff, but thank you. As if summoned by his name, Trevor's silver Mercedes pulled into our driveway. Trevor Brown, successful realtor, part-time CrossFit enthusiast, and full-time pain in my ass. He stepped out wearing khakis and a polo shirt that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. "Dave," he called out with fake enthusiasm. "How's it going, buddy?" Trevor had never called me buddy when he thought I was just Allie's rebound guy. But now that I was being discarded, suddenly we were best friends. Living the dream, Trev. You? Can't complain. Business is booming, Lucy's grades are fantastic, life is good. He said this while loading my wife's belongings into his car, apparently missing the irony entirely. I watched them work together with practiced efficiency, and it occurred to me that this really had been planned for weeks, maybe months. They moved around each other like dancers who'd rehearsed their routine, Trevor instinctively knowing which bags were heaviest, Allie automatically handing him items in order of importance. "Oh, Dave," Allie said, pausing in her packing. "Dylan's going to stop by later to pick up my yoga mats and the exercise equipment. I hope that's okay." "Of course it is. Wouldn't want Dylan to miss out on his personal training equipment." Trevor looked confused. "Who's Dylan?" "Allie's trainer," I said helpfully. "He's been very hands-on with her fitness routine." Allie shot me a warning look, but Trevor was already distracted by his phone buzzing with what was probably another $1 million listing. By noon, they were done. 3 years of marriage. Packed up and loaded into a Mercedes like it had never happened. Allie stood in our empty bedroom, doing one final check for forgotten items. "I think that's everything," she said. "Looks like it." She turned to face me, and I could see her struggling with what to say next. In the end, she settled for the classic. "I hope we can still be friends." "Sure, Allie. We'll be great friends. I'll send you a Christmas card." She flinched at my sarcasm, but didn't respond. Instead, she grabbed her purse and headed for the door. "Allie," I called after her. She turned back hopefully. "You forgot something." I tossed her the coffee mug. She caught it reflexively, looking down at the "world's okayest husband" text. "You can give this to Trevor," I said. "I'm sure he'll appreciate the upgrade." She left without another word. I stood in my empty house listening to the Mercedes pull out of the driveway and felt something shift inside me. It wasn't sadness or anger, exactly. It was something colder, more calculating. I walked to my desk and pulled out a manila envelope I'd been preparing for the past 2 weeks. Because while Allie thought she was the only one capable of planning ahead, she'd seriously underestimated her okayest husband. The envelope contained printouts of text messages I'd found on Allie's old phone, voice recordings from conversations she'd had with her friends Kim and Rachel, and a detailed timeline of her activities over the past 6 months. Activities that had very little to do with co-parenting and everything to do with Dylan's personal training sessions. I sealed the envelope carefully and wrote Trevor Brown on the front in block letters. Then I got in my truck and drove to Trevor's house. Trevor's house sat in Maple Ridge Estates, the kind of suburban development where every lawn was professionally maintained and every mailbox looked like it belonged in a catalog. I'd only been there once before, when Lucy had forgotten her science project and needed it delivered urgently. The house was a monument to Trevor's success. 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a 3-car garage, and one of those circular driveways that screamed, "I make more money than you." Allie's BMW was already parked next to Trevor's Mercedes, looking right at home. I pulled up to the mailbox, a brass monstrosity with the Brown family engraved on a wooden plaque. The irony wasn't lost on me that Allie was technically returning to her maiden name by moving in here. I slipped the envelope into the mailbox, making sure it was visible but not obvious. Then I drove home, cracked open another beer, and waited. The call came at 11:47 p.m. "Dave, what the hell did you do?" Allie's voice was shrill, panicked. "I'm fine, thanks for asking. How's the co-parenting going?" "Don't play dumb with me. Trevor found your little package. He's furious." I took a slow sip of beer, savoring the moment. "What package? I have no idea what you're talking about." "The text, Dave. The recordings. How long have you been spying on me? Spying? That's a strong word. I prefer paying attention. You'd be surprised what you can learn when you actually listen to your spouse. There was muffled shouting in the background, Trevor's voice rising above what sounded like Lucy crying. He threw me out, Allie said, her voice breaking. He won't let me see Lucy. He says I'm a liar and a cheat, and he never wants to see me again. Wow, that's terrible. What gave him that idea? You know damn well what gave him that idea. Those text messages were private. The ones where you told Dylan that you couldn't wait to ride him like a stolen motorcycle? Or the ones where you called me financially useful but disappointing in bed? Because honestly, Allie, I'm not sure which ones hurt more. The background noise was getting louder. It sounded like Trevor was throwing things. Dave, please. You have to call him and explain that those messages were taken out of context. Out of context? How exactly does one take "I'm only staying with Dave until I can figure out how to get Trevor back" out of context? Silence. Then, you recorded my phone calls. Your phone calls with Kim and Rachel? The ones where you planned this whole co-parenting charade as a way to get back into Trevor's house? The ones where Rachel suggested you could have your cake and eat it too by keeping me as a backup plan? Those phone calls? More silence. I could hear Allie breathing heavily, probably trying to figure out how much I actually knew. I trusted you, she whispered finally. Funny thing about trust, Allie. It works both ways. I finished my beer and went to bed, sleeping better than I had in months. The next morning brought a steady stream of entertainment. First, Mrs. Grady from across the street called to tell me about the commotion at Trevor's house the night before. Police cars and everything, she said with barely contained glee. That poor little Lucy, having to see her parents screaming at each other in the front yard, and at 11 o'clock at night. Some people have no consideration for the neighbors. Police cars? I asked, though I wasn't really surprised. Oh yes, someone called about the noise. Apparently Trevor was throwing Allie's belongings out onto the lawn. Made quite a mess. The officers had to calm everyone down. Mrs. Grady was 73 years old and had been the neighborhood gossip coordinator for the past 2 decades. If something happened within a 3-block radius, she knew about it within the hour. Is everyone okay? I asked, genuinely concerned about Lucy. The little one came over to my house for a while. Sweet girl. She said her daddy and Allie were having a discussion about honesty. Very mature way to put it. At least Lucy was handling this better than the adults. My phone buzzed with a text from Pete, my best friend and the mechanic who kept my ancient Ford truck running. Heard through the grapevine that your wife got kicked out of her boyfriend's house last night. You okay? I texted back, ex-wife, and I'm great. Free tonight for beers? Always. Murphy's at 7? Murphy's Tavern was the kind of dive bar where the beer was cheap, the music was loud, and nobody asked too many questions about your personal life. Pete was already there when I arrived, nursing a Budweiser and scrolling through his phone. Well, well, he said as I slid into the booth across from him. If it isn't the master of revenge himself. I have no idea what you're talking about. Pete grinned. Dave, I've known you for 15 years. You've been planning something ever since Allie started her yoga classes with that musclehead trainer. What did you do? I ordered a beer and considered how much to tell him. Pete was loyal to a fault, but he also had a big mouth when he'd been drinking. Let's just say I made sure Trevor knew exactly what kind of co-parenting arrangement he was signing up for. And he decided he wasn't interested in sharing. Pete laughed so hard he nearly choked on his beer. Jesus, Dave, what did you show him? Nothing illegal, just some text messages and voice recordings that Allie left lying around. Voice recordings? Allie's not very tech-savvy. She never figured out that our home phone system automatically records messages when the answering machine picks up, including conference calls. Pete's eyes widened. You recorded her planning this whole thing? I recorded her friends giving her advice on how to manipulate both Trevor and me, very detailed advice. Such as how to convince Trevor that she'd changed while keeping me around as financial backup, how to use Lucy as leverage to get back into Trevor's good graces, how to manage both relationships until she could figure out which one was more profitable long-term. Pete whistled low. That's cold, even for Allie. The best part was Rachel's suggestion that Allie could probably get Trevor to propose again within 6 months if she played her cards right. Something about men always wanting what they can't have. And now Trevor's seen all of this? Every word, including the part where Allie called him emotionally stunted but financially stable and said his new girlfriend looked like a discount store Barbie. Pete nearly fell off his bar stool. Trevor has a new girlfriend? Had. According to Mrs. Grady, she was the one who found the envelope and insisted Trevor read it immediately. Apparently, she left around midnight, right after the police showed up. So Allie managed to destroy 2 relationships in one night? 3, if you count her friendship with Dylan. Turns out Dylan's been bragging to his gym buddies about his desperate housewife conquest. I included some screenshots of his social media posts in the package. Pete raised his beer in salute. Dave, my friend, you are an evil genius. I'm not evil, I'm thorough. We drank in comfortable silence for a while, watching a baseball game on the bar's ancient television. Finally, Pete spoke up. So, what happens now? Now, Ali gets to experience the consequences of her choices, and I get to move on with my life. What about Lucy? That was the question I'd been dreading. Lucy was the innocent victim in all of this, and she was the one person I genuinely cared about protecting. Lucy's smart. She'll figure out who really cares about her and who's just using her as a pawn. My phone buzzed with a text message. Allie, can we please talk? I'm staying at Kim's house and I really need to explain everything. I showed the message to Pete, who snorted. Let me guess. Now she wants to explain. I typed back, nothing to explain. You made your choice. Live with it. Allie, Dave, please. I made a mistake. Trevor won't even let me call Lucy. Me. That's between you and Trevor. Allie, I know you're angry, but taking it out on Lucy isn't fair. I stared at that message for a long time. The audacity of it was breathtaking. She'd abandoned her daughter to chase after her ex-husband, and somehow I was the one taking it out on Lucy? Me. I'm not taking anything out on Lucy. You took Lucy away from the one stable home she had. Don't blame me for the consequences of your decisions. Allie, Lucy needs both of us right now. Me? Lucy needs parents who put her first instead of using her as a bargaining chip. Good luck finding those. I turned off my phone and ordered another beer. Feel better? Pete asked. Getting there. But the truth was, I was just getting started. The next few days brought a steady stream of updates from the Maple Ridge Gossip Network. Mrs. Grady kept me informed of every development, clearly thrilled to have a front row seat to the neighborhood's most entertaining drama in years. Trevor's hired a lawyer, she reported during her morning dog walk past my house. Big black SUV in the driveway yesterday afternoon, and that trainer fellow showed up around dinner time, but Trevor wouldn't let him in the house. Dylan came by, caused quite a scene, banging on the door, shouting about how Trevor needed to be a man and let Allie explain herself. Trevor called the police again. I almost felt sorry for Dylan. Almost. The kid was 29 years old, built like a Greek statue, and dumb as a box of rocks. He probably genuinely believed that his relationship with Allie was some kind of great romance instead of what it actually was, a midlife crisis with abs. What about Lucy? I asked. Mrs. Grady's expression softened. Poor thing. I saw her waiting for the school bus yesterday morning, and she looked like she hadn't slept. Trevor's trying his best, but he's not exactly the nurturing type. That afternoon, I made a decision that probably wasn't my smartest, but felt necessary. I drove to Lucy's school and waited in the pickup line. She emerged from the building looking exactly as Mrs. Grady had described, tired, confused, and younger than her 14 years. When she spotted my truck, her face lit up for the first time in days. Dave! She jogged over and climbed into the passenger seat. What are you doing here? Thought you might want to grab a milkshake and talk. Does Dad know you're here? Which Dad? Lucy considered this. Trevor. He's been weird since Mom moved in. Well, since she moved out again. We drove to Sonic and ordered chocolate milkshakes, sitting in the truck with the windows down and the radio playing softly. Lucy was quiet for a long time, just sipping her shake and watching the other cars. Mom says you're the reason Trevor won't talk to her, she said finally. What do you think? Lucy was quiet for another moment. I think Mom made her own mess, but I also think you probably didn't help clean it up. Smart kid. Too smart for her own good sometimes. You're right, I said. I didn't help. I made sure Trevor knew exactly what kind of situation he was getting into. Why? Because I was angry and hurt and tired of being lied to. Lucy nodded like this made perfect sense. Mom lies a lot. I don't think she means to, but she does. I know. Dylan's an idiot. I nearly choked on my milkshake. Lucy. What? He is. He talks to me like I'm 5 years old, and he keeps trying to give me fitness advice. I'm 14, not training for the Olympics. What kind of fitness advice? Stupid stuff. Like how I should start doing squats to maximize my potential, and how important it is to fuel my body properly. He brought me a protein shake once that tasted like chalk mixed with sadness. I couldn't help laughing. Chalk mixed with sadness? It was really bad, Dave. Like, aggressively bad. We finished our milkshakes in comfortable silence. As I drove Lucy back to Trevor's house, she spoke up again. Are you and Mom getting divorced? Probably. Good. I glanced over at her, surprised. Good? You weren't happy. Neither was she. And I'm tired of living in a house where everyone's pretending everything is fine when it obviously isn't. I pulled into Trevor's driveway, noting that Allie's BMW was nowhere to be seen. Lucy, I want you to know that no matter what happens between your mom and me, I'm still here if you need anything. I know. She unbuckled her seatbelt but didn't get out immediately. Dave? Yeah? Mom's planning something. I heard her on the phone with Kim last night. Something about fixing this mess and making everyone see the truth. A chill ran down my spine. What kind of something? I don't know, but she sounded determined. Like when she decided to redecorate the living room and wouldn't listen to anyone who said beige wasn't a good color choice. Lucy hugged me goodbye and headed for the house. I watched until she was safely inside, then sat in the driveway for a few minutes thinking. Ellie was planning something. That couldn't be good. My phone rang as I was driving home. Pete. Dave, you need to get down to Murphy's. Now. Why? What's wrong? Dylan's here. He's drunk, he's pissed off, and he's telling everyone who'll listen that you ruined his life. I'll be right there. Murphy's was more crowded than usual for a Wednesday evening. I spotted Dylan immediately. He was hard to miss, standing at the bar in a tank top that showed off his gym-sculpted arms, gesturing wildly while talking to anyone who would listen. The guy's a psycho, Dylan was saying to a couple of construction workers. Totally obsessed with his wife. Couldn't handle that she found someone better. I walked up to the bar and ordered a beer, positioning myself close enough to hear, but not close enough to be obvious about eavesdropping. She's an amazing woman, Dylan continued. Smart, beautiful, successful. And this loser husband of hers couldn't appreciate what he had, so he sabotaged her relationship with her ex, made up a bunch of lies, and now she's homeless. One of the construction workers looked skeptical. Made up lies? Totally fabricated. He's probably one of those guys who goes through his wife's phone and makes up stories about innocent text messages. Pure jealousy. I took a long sip of my beer and waited. I mean, the woman's a saint, Dylan went on. She was trying to do right by her daughter, create a stable home environment, and this psycho couldn't handle not being the center of attention. So, what are you going to do about it? The other construction worker asked. I'm thinking about paying him a visit, setting the record straight. Guy needs to learn that there are consequences for messing with people's lives. That's when I decided I'd heard enough. Excuse me, I said, turning toward Dylan. Are you talking about Allie Renshaw? Dylan spun around, and I could see the exact moment he recognized me. His face went through several expressions in rapid succession, surprise, anger, and finally a kind of drunken bravado. Well, if it isn't the psycho husband himself. The bar got noticeably quieter. Even the jukebox seemed to lower its volume. I couldn't help overhearing, I said calmly. You were telling these gentlemen about how I made up lies about my wife? Ex-wife. And yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. I pulled out my phone and opened the voice recording app. Would you like to hear some of those lies? Dylan's bravado faltered slightly. What? I hit play. Allie's voice filled the bar, crystal clear. Dylan's amazing in bed, but he's not exactly husband material. I mean, the man thinks fine dining is Olive Garden. But Trevor has money, stability, a future. If I can just get back in his good graces... Dylan's face went white. Where did you get that? I stopped the recording. That's just the beginning. Would you like to hear the part where she describes your performance in detail? Or maybe the part where she and her friends laugh about how easy it is to manipulate you? You're lying. Am I? I hit play again. This time it was Rachel's voice. The trainer's completely pussy-whipped. Ellie could probably get him to rob a bank if she batted her eyelashes and told him it was for Lucy's college fund. Laughter from Ali and Kim. Ali's voice. He brought me flowers yesterday, grocery store flowers. It was actually kind of sad. More laughter. Dylan looked like he was going to be sick. She said those things? There's about 3 hours of recordings, Dylan. Would you like me to play them all? The construction workers were staring at Dylan with a mixture of pity and amusement. One of them patted him on the shoulder. Sounds like you dodged a bullet, buddy. Dylan pushed the hand away angrily. This is bullshit. You manipulated those recordings somehow. Sure I did. With my vast knowledge of audio engineering and my Hollywood-level special effects budget. I took another sip of beer. Or maybe, just maybe, the woman you thought was in love with you was actually using you to make her ex-husband jealous. Dylan's hands clenched into fists. For a moment, I thought he might actually take a swing at me, but then his shoulders sagged, and all the fight went out of him. "She said she loved me," he whispered. "She said a lot of things. Most of them weren't true." Dylan stumbled toward the door, pushing past other patrons without apology. I watched him go, feeling something that might have been sympathy if he hadn't just threatened to pay me a visit. Pete appeared at my elbow. Well, that was educational. Poor bastard actually believed her. You almost feel sorry for him. Almost. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This isn't over." I showed it to Pete, who rolled his eyes. "Jim boy?" "Probably." "You worried?" I thought about it for a moment, then shook my head. Dylan's not dangerous. He's just stupid and heartbroken. Bad combination, but not actually threatening. I was wrong about that, but I wouldn't find out how wrong until the next day. I woke up Thursday morning to find my truck's tires slashed and "Psycho" spray-painted across the windshield in red letters. Classy. Mrs. Grady was already waiting by her mailbox when I came outside to assess the damage, practically vibrating with excitement. "I saw the whole thing," she announced. "That muscle-bound fellow from the other night. Came by around 3 in the morning with a can of spray paint and a knife. I called the police, but he was gone by the time they arrived." "Did you get a good look at him?" "Oh, yes. Hard to miss a man that size skulking around the neighborhood. The officers took my statement and said they'd be in touch." I called my insurance company and arranged for a tow truck, then called Pete to ask for a ride to work. He arrived 20 minutes later, took one look at my truck, and started laughing. "Psycho? That's the best he could come up with?" Apparently Dylan's not as creative as he is muscular. "What are you going to do about it?" I was already formulating a plan, but I wasn't ready to share it yet. Nothing illegal. That's not as reassuring as you think it is. Work was a welcome distraction. I supervised the maintenance crew at Riverside Towers, a luxury apartment complex downtown. It wasn't glamorous work, but it paid well and kept me busy enough to avoid thinking about my personal life for 8 hours at a time. My crew consisted of 3 guys in their 20s who treated me like a combination big brother and life coach. They'd been following the Ali drama with the enthusiasm of people watching a reality TV show. "So she really moved in with her ex-husband?" asked Marcus, the youngest of the 3. "Briefly. And then he kicked her out when he found out about the trainer?" "That's the short version." "Damn, Dave, that's cold." "What's cold is planning to abandon your husband and daughter for a guy who thinks Olive Garden is fine dining." The guys cracked up at that. I'd shared some of the tamer details from the recordings, partly to blow off steam, and partly because I knew they'd never repeat anything that could get me in trouble. "What's she doing now?" asked Tony, our electrician. "Last I heard, she was staying with her friend Kim." "The nurse?" "That's the one." Kim Hartwell was Allie's oldest friend and biggest enabler. She'd been divorced 3 times and seemed to view marriage as a temporary arrangement at best. She was also the one who'd encouraged Allie to explore her options in the first place. "Kim's bad news," said Jake, our plumber. "My ex-wife used to hang out with her crowd. They spent more time planning their next divorce than working on their current marriages." That afternoon, I got a call from Trevor. He sounded tired and stressed. "Dave, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be straight with me." "Okay." "How long did you know? About Allie and the trainer?" I considered lying, but Trevor deserved the truth. "About 6 months, maybe longer." "Why didn't you say anything?" "Would you have believed me?" Long pause. "Probably not." "That's why I didn't say anything. I figured you'd find out eventually." "Lucy wants to see you." "What?" "She's been asking about you constantly. Wants to know if you're okay, if you're angry with her, if she's ever going to see you again. It's breaking my heart." I felt a lump form in my throat. "She's not responsible for any of this." "I know that. You know that. But she's 14, and her whole world just got turned upside down. She needs some stability." "What are you suggesting?" "Come to dinner tonight. Let her see that you're okay and that you still care about her. Allie's not here. She's staying with Kim until we can figure out some kind of custody arrangement." "Custody arrangement?" "I'm filing for full custody. After everything that's happened, I don't think Allie's capable of putting Lucy's needs first." I agreed to dinner, partly because I missed Lucy, and partly because I was curious about Trevor's state of mind. We'd never been friends, exactly, but we'd maintained a cordial relationship for Lucy's sake. Trevor's house looked different without Allie's touches. The throw pillows were gone, along with the scented candles and the inspirational quotes she'd hung on every available wall. It looked more masculine, but also somehow emptier. Lucy met me at the door with a hug that nearly knocked me over. "Dave, I was so worried about you. Mom said you were really angry and might not want to see me anymore. Your mom was wrong. I could never be angry with you. Trevor appeared in the doorway, looking haggard. He'd lost weight in the past week, and there were dark circles under his eyes. Thanks for coming, he said, extending his hand. Thanks for inviting me. Dinner was pizza from Lucy's favorite place. Not exactly gourmet, but it felt more relaxed than any meal I'd shared with Allie in months. Lucy chattered about school, her friends, and her latest art project, carefully avoiding any mention of her mother. After dinner, Lucy went upstairs to do homework, leaving Trevor and me alone in the living room. I owe you an apology, Trevor said. For what? For being an idiot. For letting Allie manipulate me into thinking you were the problem. For not seeing what was right in front of my face. Trevor, you don't... Yes, I do. I was so focused on trying to be the perfect co-parent that I ignored all the warning signs. The late-night phone calls, the mysterious errands, the way she always had an excuse for why Lucy couldn't spend weekends here. Allie's very good at making people see what she wants them to see. That's no excuse. I should have known better. I was married to her for 8 years. I knew how she operated. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the news on Trevor's enormous flat-screen TV. What's your plan now? I asked. Full custody, like I said. My lawyer thinks it's a strong case, especially with the evidence you provided. Allie's behavior over the past few months shows a pattern of putting her own needs ahead of Lucy's. What about visitation? Supervised visits, at least initially. I want to make sure she's getting her act together before she has unsupervised time with Lucy. It sounded harsh, but I couldn't argue with the logic. Allie had proven that she was willing to use Lucy as a pawn in her romantic games. There's something else, Trevor said. Allie's been calling Lucy's school, trying to pick her up early. The principal called me today. Apparently she showed up yesterday claiming there was a family emergency. Did they let her take Lucy? No, thank God. I'd already called and told them that only I was authorized to pick Lucy up until further notice. But it shows how desperate she's getting. My phone buzzed with a text from Allie. I know you're at Trevor's house. We need to talk. All three of us. I showed the message to Trevor, who grimaced. How does she know you're here? Good question. Trevor went to the front window and peered through the blinds. Her car's across the street. She's watching the house? Looks like it. I walked over to the window and looked out. Sure enough, Allie's BMW was parked under a streetlight about 50 yards away. I could see her silhouette in the driver's seat. How long has she been there? I have no idea. Could have been there when you arrived. My phone buzzed again. I can see you looking at me. Come outside. We need to settle this like adults. What do you want to do? Trevor asked. I thought about it for a moment. Allie was clearly not going to give up easily, and having her lurking around Trevor's neighborhood was only going to make things worse. I'll go talk to her, but I'm recording the conversation. Are you sure that's a good idea? Probably not, but ignoring her isn't working either. I walked outside and across the street, pulling out my phone to start the voice recorder. Allie rolled down her window as I approached. Finally, she said. I was starting to think you were going to hide in there all night. What do you want, Allie? I want to explain. I want you and Trevor to understand that this whole situation has been blown completely out of proportion. Blown out of proportion? Yes. You took a few private text messages and some casual conversations and turned them into this huge conspiracy theory. I never meant to hurt anyone. You moved in with your ex-husband and brought your boyfriend along to help pack. How exactly did you expect that to go? Allie's face flushed. Dylan is not my boyfriend. He's my trainer. And yes, maybe we got a little too close, but it wasn't serious. It was just, I don't know, a distraction. A distraction from what? From feeling trapped. From feeling like I was stuck in a marriage that wasn't working, in a life that wasn't what I wanted. So you decided to blow everything up instead of just asking for a divorce like a normal person. I didn't want a divorce. I wanted options. I wanted to feel like I had some control over my own life. I stared at her, genuinely amazed. Options? Ali, you were married. To me. That's not supposed to be about keeping your options open. You don't understand. You've never been married before. You don't know what it's like to feel like you've made a mistake and not know how to fix it. You're right. I don't know what that's like. But I do know what it's like to be married to someone who's constantly looking for an exit strategy. Allie started crying, which I'd been expecting. She'd always been able to turn on the tears when she needed sympathy. Dave, please. I know I screwed up. I know I hurt you and Lucy and Trevor. But I can fix this. We can all work together and figure out what's best for everyone. What's best for everyone is for you to accept responsibility for your choices and stop trying to manipulate people into cleaning up your mess. I'm not manipulating anyone. Allie, you're sitting in your car outside your ex-husband's house at 9 o'clock at night, stalking him and your current husband. If that's not manipulation, what is? She wiped her eyes and looked at me with something that might have been genuine remorse. I love you, Dave. I know I have a terrible way of showing it, but I do love you. And I love Trevor too, in a different way. And I love Lucy more than anything in the world. I just wanted to find a way to keep everyone in my life. That's not how love works, Allie. You can't love someone and lie to them at the same time. You can't love someone and use them as a backup plan. So what happens now? Now you go home to Kim's house and let Trevor and me figure out how to help Lucy get through this, and you stay away from Dylan, and you stop showing up places uninvited, and you start acting like the adult you're supposed to be. Allie nodded, still crying. What about us? What about our marriage? Our marriage ended the day you decided Trevor was a better option. Everything since then has just been paperwork. I turned and walked back toward Trevor's house, leaving Allie sitting in her car. As I reached the front door, I heard her engine start and watched her drive away. Trevor was waiting in the living room with 2 beers. How'd it go? About as well as expected. She's in full victim mode, but I think she got the message. Which is? Stop making everything worse. We drank our beers and watched the end of the baseball game. As I was getting ready to leave, Lucy came downstairs in her pajamas. Is Mom okay? She asked. She's fine, just confused about some things. Are you going to get back together? I looked at Trevor, who nodded encouragingly. No, sweetheart, we're not. But that doesn't change how I feel about you. Lucy hugged me again, and I realized that no matter how this whole mess played out, I was going to fight to stay in her life. Some things were worth fighting for.